Hello and welcome to Dark and Stormy Book Club. Today, it's what we're reading. Enjoy.
I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
It's September, and you know what time that is. It's what we're reading.
In this world that we do mystery books, there's always something in the background. There's real victims and real people that have to deal with murder. And in my hometown, where I live right now, there was a young lady who was on a walking path, and that's where her body was found. Now, she had 5 children, and this has made the news across the world. I've seen stories in England. Our hearts go out to the family of Rachel Morin and her children and her extended family. I'm hoping by the time this episode comes out that this is solved and my community can get back to normal.
That's a rough one.
Yeah, It is. We have decided to do libraries and librarians since it's September and it's back to school. Misty, you want to go first?
Sure. I read Librarians and Larceny, an utterly addictive cozy mystery, which is the first book in a rebel librarian crime fighter mystery. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this. It was super cute. It was really well done. Came out mid-July. So it's set in a college town. And
Wrote it.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cyndy Cypress. And it's Cyndy is Cyndy. Cypress is Cypress. And I think it's self-published. It's 2 librarians, and they come across a kidnapping, and then there's a missing book. There's just a bunch of different things. So when they can't find this librarian, they then band together to look for them. But they have 2 very opposite personalities. And them like going against each other is absolutely hysterical. I loved it. Now, I may have laughed at places that maybe other people wouldn't, simply because I have someone like that in my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, could you have been any more like, are you peeking in the window or what are we doing here? But it was really, really good. I liked that they were put up against a police captain who is definitely not the friendliest of people. They start out living pretty quiet lives, and this shook up everything. And I very much look forward to the next one. I feel like they are budding detectives. Like sometimes you read a cozy mystery, and I've written them. The heroine is very reluctant. She doesn't want to get involved, but all of a sudden she's
Thrust in the middle of it.
Yeah. Or if she doesn't find out who actually killed the person, then she's going to be, that's a lot of times that's the first book. Like, how do you get them in to this in the first place? Unless you just say, oh, look, she's just really nosy. I don't know what to tell you. So if you're going to give them a reason, a lot of times it's that in the first book, this person is the prime suspect. And so if they can't clear their name, blah, 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 blah. Here we are at the end of the story, clearing your name. And then like maybe you get a taste for it. Maybe sometimes they'll have them be a part of a mystery group, or this just was, their life was quiet. Things are happening. They can't find somebody, then they can't find a manuscript that's attached to this person's past life. And now we're rolling. And I was like, oh, I am here for this ride.
Sounds
So
good.
it was really good. And I hope that people will give it a chance because it looks like I was looking afterwards and there's only like 3 reviews. I always enjoy reading more traditionally published stuff. You can get ARCs for that and you can, be a part of NetGalley, whatever. But sometimes the independent published creators, they have a little more leeway, which can both work in their favor and go, you might have
Oh,
wanted an editor.
you wanted to
before you
reel
did
that in a little bit.
Yeah, I really felt like this was well done. I really liked the book. It definitely kept me running right alongside it.
Now,
And
when
I
did this
don't,
come out?
July 11th of 2023.
So just recently.
Yep,
And is
yep,
this the first in a series?
it is. Yep, it is the
Okay.
first in the series. I just thought, oh, okay, I'm here for this. It was definitely along the lines of the more traditional cozies, and I liked that too. So I go back and forth. I will do fringy ones, and then I also like the more in the middle of the road ones. And I really enjoyed this one. So I highly recommend Cyndy Cypress, Cyndy with a Y, both in the middle and at the end. Cypress like the tree. And then the series is called Librarians and Larceny, and it is an utterly addictive cozy mystery under the Rebel Librarian Crime Fighter mystery series.
Ooh.
So I don't see a second one as of yet. It's really good. And, if you like things that have to do with kind of the college town, it also happens during homecoming weekend. It's a lot that's going on, but all of it was really good and led into something that I very much enjoyed.
I'll go next.
All right.
The name of my book is The Librarian of Crooked Lane. It's the first in the Glass Library series.
Ooh, Glass Library.
It's self-published and it came out September of 2022. And the second book is already out, which is called The Medici Manuscript. And this book truly had everything. I mean, soup to nuts, it had it. This is a historical mystery, but it's also fantasy. It's got an amateur sleuth, but it's also got it's kind of like a procedural.
Oh, really?
Yep. I loved everything about it. I will read the second one. I will read the third. I'll read whatever one she has.
Who wrote it?
Yeah.
C.J. Archer. And I have never read anything by her, but I do have a lot to read because this apparently, even though it's the first in this series, is actually the 16th book. This is a spin-off of her Glass and Steel series. So some of the characters are in here. Now, our protagonist, Sylvia, is not one of the characters. She's a new character. This story revolves around her. So let me tell you a little bit about it. Librarian Sylvia Ashe knows nothing about her past, having grown up without a father and a mother who refuses to discuss him. When she stumbles upon the diary that suggests that she descended from magicians, she's skeptical. After all, magicians are special, and she's just an ordinary woman who loves books. She seeks answers from a member of the most prominent family of magicians, but quickly learns that finding the truth won't be easy, especially when he turns out to be as artless as she. War hero Gabe is gifted with wealth, a loving family, and an incredible amount of luck that saw him survive the harrowing years of the brutal World War I. Gabe is going through the motions as he investigates a theft of a magician-made painting, and I'll get to what that means. But his life changes when he unwillingly gets Sylvia dismissed from her job. After securing her new employment in a library house of the world's greatest collection of magic, Gabe and Sylvia's lives become intertwined as they work together to find both the painting and the truth about Sylvia's past. Okay, now let's get into it. In this world, magic is part of everyday life. It's not magic performed for people. Let's say that somebody has magic when it comes to leather, then their leather is beyond, it's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. And Gabe's mother was actually a watch magician. The watches that were made under her tutelage never lost time. They all had little magical things. One thing that's sought after is paintings that were done by magicians, but it kind of goes a little deeper than that, because sometimes it was the paint itself that was made that was magical. Sometimes it was the canvas. And so I just immersed myself into this world. It just was fascinating. Well, one of the magical paintings gets stolen. Like I said in the description, Gabe gets Sylvia fired from her job. But one thing that I thought was very interesting is, and this is where the historical part came out, this book took place in London in 1920. She was working as, apparently before this book started, but she's describing it as a news reporter for newspapers. Well, when the war's over, she loses her job because that's a man's job, but they needed
yes.
to do it during the war. So I really never thought about that before, that there was probably quite a bit of that going on.
Oh, yeah.
And he gets her fired because he shows up and he ends up staying longer, and the guy was a jerk that ran that library. So his family is the Glass family, and so that's where the Glass Library comes in. And there's this whole archive of magical books. So he gets her a job there. And apparently that falls right into what Sylvia wants to be able to question his mother, because his mother's name was India Glass. She's the one that did the watches, but she's like revered. She's the top of the top when it comes to magic. But I just loved everything about this book. Gabe is engaged in the book. So you're thinking, okay, well, not much of a love interest there. But then by the end of the book, you can see that Gabe is definitely starting to fall for Sylvia. And
I love it.
he's trying to get her to stay at his house because she's not like that, because, you know, she kind of lost her place to live because of her employment. So he was like, you can stay with me. So she thinks when she moves out, she's probably never going to see him again and stuff.
Right.
Well, he found ways to kind of bring her into this mystery of helping him find this painting. And it just was so well done. And now I want to go back and read the Steel and Glass series, because if they're anything like this, it's going to be a fun ride. I think it's a very clever idea to intertwine a mystery with the magical world. It was very interesting.
I am fascinated by that concept because I've definitely read high fantasy novels that's a thing where like there are different guilds, or everyone has a specific family and they're waiting for that particular talent to show up in whoever the main character is. More often than not, it doesn't, and then you got to figure, or it's something else. But in a more historical but realistic setting, that almost kind of rides the line of alternate history.
Yeah, kind of like that. I mean, they gave a lot of historical truths, but they just added a little bit of a fantasy to it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm in for this. I want to read more of this kind of book. She doesn't think she has any abilities. Her brother, before he died in the war, had written letters saying that he felt that they were silver magicians. And so that's what she was trying to find out about it. But in the book, they refer to people who aren't magical, because there's so many people that are, as artless. Now, Gabe tells her, even though his family has magicians, that he's artless. But I think there's more to that, because he was put in quite a few dangerous positions in the war and managed to survive. and he dove in the water to save the dog, and he was underwater for a very long time. So I think there's more to it that nobody thought he was still alive by the time he came up. So
Interesting.
but the library itself, the description of how beautiful it was and all the different books. And I was like, I want to go to this place. I wish it was a real thing.
Yeah. Ah,
Now, you say that he got her fired from her job.
Yes.
Did he do it on purpose?
No, he did not. The guy that she worked for, I mean, he was a jerk. And he just had it in for Sylvia from day one. And so when he comes to question Sylvia and him, he ended up staying longer than he should have and felt that Sylvia should have ushered him out, and she did not. So he found a way to get rid of her, but he gets his in the end.
So he did.
Good.
Her website is cjarcher.com.
My book is called Checked Out. It's #1 in the Village Mystery series by Elizabeth Spann Craig. It came out in 2019. Ann Beckett is a librarian in the small town of Whitby in some place. Doesn't really say where Whitby is. One of the library patrons think they have the perfect date for her. So they fix her up with a blind date, and she reluctantly agrees to go because she likes the patron. She figures the worst that could happen would be the two of them wouldn't hit it off and they'd never have to see each other again. Well, when we first meet her, two little boys run into the library and they tell her there's a cat in the storm drain. So Anne runs out of the library and crawls into the rain culvert and rescues two little kittens. Well, one is an older cat, and rescued the two cats, and she brings them in, calls the vet. One of the two cats is adopted immediately by one of the library patrons, and the other cat is decided that they will keep him in the library as a temporary library cat.
I love it.
And they named him Fitz, short for F. Scott Fitzgerald.
And
And after the cats are safely at the vet, she goes home, cleans up for her date. Now, he asked her to meet him at his house, which most women would go, oh, no. But she went over to his house and she finds her date dead with a barbecue skewer stuck out of his neck.
No.
Hey, I never thought of that.
Right? There goes dinner.
And she says this officially made it the worst date ever. And so she gives her information to the police chief, who in this book is happy to have help from citizens.
Oh, different.
He doesn't get all puffed out of shape.
Fabulous.
I know. He said even though they're nosy, they still have information.
Then there you go, right?
So she finds out from other people that knew this guy that got killed, and she's pretty lucky she didn't go out with him. Apparently, he was a real piece of work. He had gypped some people out of money, and so he had a reputation. She's bound and determined she's going to find out who killed this guy, just because her old college professor lived close to this guy, and apparently they locked horns a couple times. So the police are looking at her old college professor. So
As
she's
you
going
do.
to make sure the police have somebody else to look at too. This book had everything I like about a cozy. It had quirky characters, it had a lot of humor, it had a good mystery, and it had cats.
Did it have a vacuum cleaner though?
No, it did not.
I'm just asking.
It doesn't have everything.
And there were no octopi in this book.
Oh,
I love the octopus.
I did too.
It's the first in this series. The author has 54 books out.
Wow.
Nice.
The Village Library series has 9 books.
Ooh,
The Southern Quilting Mysteries have 19 books.
wow.
The Myrtle Clover Cozy Mysteries have 22 books. And the
Wow.
Barbecue Mysteries have 4 books.
Are all of those still in process, or does it have like 22 books that it's done?
No, apparently all of these are still going on.
They're all okay. Okay.
Because
Good for her.
I looked,
Yeah.
her next book is called End of Story. And I
Okay.
thought, oh, that sounds like the end of but there's another book after that. So
Okay. So no. So that was
already-
like,
Psych.
okay. All right.
The,
So we're gonna overlook the false advertising.
right.
And we're just gonna enjoy that it had everything that you love in a cozy mystery. And those are my favorites. The ones that they hit all the marks. And then when I was talking earlier here about the book, I do sometimes like to read the fringe ones, but I just as much sometimes I'm like, give me the ones that I know at least to some extent what is going to happen. I know that we're going to start out with a murder. I know we're going to end with some sort of monologue from the person.
Sometimes you
and-
need that.
like
You need a
every time-
consistency thing. You can
Yes.
count on it.
Well, and people say, well, that's like a trope. And I'm like, right,
No,
but they
I
exist
don't
for
think-
a
I don't-
reason. They
Yeah.
exist for a reason because there are, just like in romance and just even like in thriller, if you are going to recommend to someone a thriller and you know that they want the middle of the road thriller, you're not giving them something that's completely hide off to the side. You're going to give them something that's going to hit the marks that they want. And if you also want to call that a trope, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
It's not a bad word. I want this specific kind of book. Find me that.
Mhm.
I'll take chances on other things, but sometimes I want exactly what I think I'm getting.
Yeah.
This was one of those, I sat down, read it, and I was halfway through before I even realized it. It was
I
just
love it.
that really it's like a tally. You sit
Oh,
down and you read it and
thank you.
you just follow the groove. It gets in the groove and that's where you go.
Like this book series that I just read, I almost didn't even have to write up the notes
Oh,
because I could remember all the characters' names. I want to be in this world. I want to immerse myself. If that's what it did for you, Mom, then you just found a new series.
I love it. I'll read anything. And 54 books to get through. So you're booked for like what, a month and a half or so?
Now you have 3 books to read. And like I say, every time, I would not have picked up this book if we didn't have the theme of library. And I'm so glad I did, because it is now very high up in the books that I'm going to be looking forward to. And next month, we figured, since Fright Reads is coming up, we're going to do the theme of spooky books. Anything scary or, ghosty.
Okay.
So
So if we can't find you from now on, though, have you gone into this universe? Like, should your mom be opening your closet to see if there's like a Narnia door there?
yeah.
There are times, though. I mean, I've read books where I was like, I would give
Oh my
anything
God,
to
I
live
know
in
what
this
you
world.
mean. When we were camping, I was reading a book and it was kind of a magical book. And I'm
Uh-huh.
sitting there and I'm staring at the trees while we're camping. And I'm
Yeah.
like picturing, if I just close my eyes
Yeah.
and open up, could I manifest this world?
Yeah. There was a book, and I can't remember what it was called, and it wasn't Lord of the Rings. It was something else where the trees talked. And I was camping. This would have been a long time ago because I don't camp now. But I just remember sitting on the grass and reading this book and thinking, like, if I think hard enough, will you answer me? And I just like, I would have given anything at that moment to have a tree say, yeah, what's your question? Okay, I got things to do, I got rings to grow. What is it that you want?
Yep.
And those are the kind of books that you're like, oh, that's a special treat for me.
Yeah.
You know what
Well,
I
I
mean?
consider myself very lucky to grow up in the family that I did because
Yes.
my mom and my grandmother, they had such a love for books
Yes.
and such a respect for the story itself that it was very easy to talk to my mom or my grandmother
Right.
about things, and they would encourage it. You were never felt like you were, what do you mean? This isn't real. Where not my
Yeah.
family, they would embrace it
might be real,
and
but
run with it.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
Trivia. Last week's question was, there have been many true crime books written about the following serial killers: Jeffrey Dahmer, Aileen Wuornos, and Ted Bundy. But what is one thing that they have in common even to this day? A. Ann Rule wrote about them. B. They contributed to their story with the author. C. They have Facebook pages. Or D. They have fan clubs. The answer is D. They have fan clubs. Even after their deaths, there are active fan clubs for each of these serial killers. Jeffrey Dahmer's fan club was featured in the Netflix adaptation of Dahmer. Ted Bundy and Aileen Wuornos also had their fan clubs become more active after there were documentaries made about them. This week's question is, many mysteries are inspired by true crime. Each of the following books were inspired by a true crime except for one. Which one is completely fiction? A. The Crow Trap by Anne Cleves. B. The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. C. The Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. Or D. Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. Tune in next week for the answer. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode. We hope you enjoyed the selections we picked for our What We're Reading. And next month, as Tracy said, we will be looking into horror or ghost stories. So be sure and tune in then, and tune in next week when we have another fascinating book for you to think about. And remember,
Life would be boring without a little mystery.
Bye.
Bye.